Thank you so much for joining the Wild and Precious Life series. We're doing what we do every time we gather in the Wild and Precious Life series is bring you talented poets sharing their work that you are going to enjoy. So, our first poet of the evening is Isaiah Vianese. And for Isaiah's introduction, Isaiah is in a Dolly anthology, and I felt at first, Isaiah, I was like, should I read it since I'm one of the editors on this anthology? But I love this poem so much, and now that the anthology has been out for 3 years, it's harder to slip poems in and make them relevant. And your poem, when I read it, and I think Julie's here tonight, she put in the comment, we both just adored this poem, like all poems in it, and we're so glad to see it. And also, the song that it references. I'd put that more on the deep cut kind of end of the Dolly spectrum, as a lot of people don't know this song. And anytime I pick up the book and I read it, it just contributes to the smiles that I need in that day. So this is Isaiah's poem. Oh, and I did hear a little rumor. It might be in the book that Isaiah is reading from tonight. So you can read it yourself when you purchase Isaiah's book once the link is in the chat. My Broadway crush covers Wildflowers. Decades after Dolly's recording for Trio, he makes his own way, and I'm drawn into the sweetness of his tenor. I've long moved from my hometown. Now, boys in New York call me beautiful and babe. Hold my hand while we walk under the lights of 42nd Street. I often forget the quiet grass of my childhood until a tune like this marks the distance between now and then. That kid is long gone, and I rarely miss his loneliness. Tonight, as my crush kissed me at 48th and Ninth, pink blossoms fell from the sky. Then we drank wine and talked for hours. I rode the train home, listening to Wildflowers again. I thought about Dolly writing the song and how she may not have known what it would mean for queer men like us, how such music carried us to the city where we could finally grow. Oh, that ending. Thank you so much for being here tonight. The screen is yours.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Dustin. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for having me read. I'm really honored to be a part of this. Thank you so much. So, tonight I'm going to be reading from my new book called Thank You More Please. It just came out last month, so I'm really excited to read from it for you. It's barely a little over a month old. This book, most of it I wrote between 2021 and 2025. So, in a way, it's a pandemic book, I guess, of a sort. But I really wanted to write a book about the things that make us feel grateful when the world feels terrible. Over the course of writing this book, I lost my grandmother and um, I switched jobs, but I also got married and I have wonderful friendships and there's all this stuff. So I wanted a book that about how like friendship and relationships and marriage and sex and all of this stuff brings us joy and pleasure, even when the world feels like it's falling apart. Little did I know that the book would feel just as relevant 5 years later than when I started it. I'm really excited to read for you. The first poem I'm going to read is actually the first poem in the book. It's called Happy New Year, Find Yourself. I wanted the book to begin and end with New Year's. So this is the first New Year's poem. It's loosely inspired by a Jan Heller Levy poem called Anatomy Lesson, which is in her book Sky Speak. If you've never read Jan Heller Levy, I highly recommend her. She's, I think, a deeply underappreciated poet. And her book Sky Speak is beautiful. So this is loosely inspired by like kind of the structure of her poem, Anatomy Lesson. So this is Happy New Year, Find Yourself. There are pieces of me everywhere. Part of me is on the couch with my husband, my head on his shoulder while he drinks coffee and listens to the morning news. He runs his fingers through my hair. This part is peaceful and dreaming. Another part is kissing friends before embracing, my face nuzzled into one neck while my legs are thrown across the lap of another. Their sighs raise the tide, and every boat in my body wants to break out to sea. Part of me is thinking about my grandmother, gone 3 Christmases already, and the things I'd love to tell her about our lives this past year. Promotions, the new place with books on the shelves to the ceiling. A part is dancing around the apartment in just underwear, part giving the perfect blowjob, part saying balance in ASL, part singing just because it's over doesn't mean it's really over, part taking these pieces and building this messy collage of love called life. Thankful for all of it. I thank you so much. I'm really glad you like it. This next poem I'm going to read is like a love song to my husband. It's a very New York poem. Um, so this song is called My Husband Loves Diners. We've eaten our way across the city. Omelets on the Upper West Side, the perfect sandwich in Chinatown. We dine and talk, drink weak coffee. We hold hands, worry about our friends, try to remember pop songs we like. We pay cash, we tip too much. We are always hungry. And that's the key after all these years. We've not given up on longing for each other, this city, for everything and everyone we want to taste and touch together and on our own. We love, we crave, we make joy how we can. Um, this book was not the I this is actually my second book. I had a book out in 2016 called Men in Music. And after that book came out, I really struggled to write another book. I worked on a whole other manuscripts that I could never figure out how to finish and make kind of gel. Um, and so I'd kind of given up. And then uh, in 2020, I didn't write at all. And then I realized in 2021 that I was actually starting to write a new book when I wrote this poem. This poem is the poem that made me feel like, I'm starting something. I feel like the music has come back. I mean, if you're a poet, maybe you've had that feeling of like, oh, the poems are starting to work again. You know, there's something there. So this poem is called All in My Feelings. Maybe it was listening to Heart sing These Dreams live on repeat, or 3 days of rain, the drops hitting the sill in their unsteady rhythm. Maybe it was my husband calling to say, I miss you, or my beautiful friend who pulled me into his lap and kissed me so deliciously, my head filled with light. Maybe it was the vaccine running through my body, spinning off cells to save me, or Harlem waking from its long sleep, people in parks again, barbecues, drinkers laughing at the bar. Maybe it was another song, the diva shouting, I want you, over a disco beat, and how that chorus caught in my throat like a sugary sadness, hunger, gratitude for living, all of those feelings, all of them. I'm going to read the title poem for the book. So the poem, this poem's called "Thank You More Please," which is the title of the collection. It's taken from a film. There was a movie that came out in 2010 called "Happy Thank You More Please," like all smeared together as one word. And it's kind of like people in their late 20s trying to figure out how to live in New York and make art and fall in love and find joy. And when it came out, I was in my 20s, so it felt very inspirational to me. And I wanted to kind of capture the joy of that movie and also the joy of that feeling when you meet someone and it clicks so quickly that you feel grateful, that it feels like fate that you've met each other, whether that's a lover or a partner or a friend. So this poem is hopefully captures that feeling. So this is thank you more, please. All day together, I kept returning to that phrase. In the film, the actress talks about gratitude. She says, "We must bid the universe thank you," followed by more, please. So after we kissed and I pulled back to see your face, I thought it. Then it returned while we chatted over lunch, catching up on the last few weeks. Later on the couch, sipping tea, my legs in your lap, your fingers running down my arm, I breathed it into your chest. Even when you had to go and hugged me one more time, I repeated it. How lucky we are to have found each other. Thank you. Can I give you more? Please. Again and again. This is another poem that's kind of a similar feeling. This poem is called The Best Part. There's more physical intimacy in this poem. Let's say this poem ups the ante on that a little bit, okay? So this is called The Best Part. After lunch, a walk, good conversation, 2 rounds of delicious sex, every drop of joy devoured, nothing wasted. It was laying there, wrapped up with each other, talking and kissing, your fingers running down my back, mine in your hair, feeling lucky, grateful to have forged such friendship. Later, there were lovely things too, holding your hand, afternoon light catching the green in your eyes, you wet and handsome in my shower, our bodies warm together under the water. How you looked me over as I toweled off, and I felt beautiful. Or walking you to the train and pausing on the street for a moment to see you disappear into the station. When I laid down that night, the sheets still smelled like you, and that scent replayed the whole afternoon. You texted, "Still blissed out. Thank you for a delightful day. Can't wait to do it again." And I couldn't help but say, "Yes, yes, yes," out loud to the empty apartment. Thank you. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I think even a joyful book has to have a poem about feeling messy. Yeah, absolutely. Especially like that feeling of when after you've met somebody and like the hormones are high and the feelings are high and you're feeling a little messy and crazy. I've had a few friends after the book came out tell me that this is their favorite poem because they identified with it. So uh, I want to honor the messiness in all of us. Also, any poem in which I get to yell at Carrie Bradshaw for a minute is worth the time. Okay, so this poem is called This Week I'm Too Much. This week I'm too much. Sent a lot of nudes. Listened to more remixes than usual. Drank an abundance of green tea. Flirted recklessly. Asked my husband to kiss me over and over. Pined for you in Queens. Worry I texted more than I should, though you were sweet about it. Watched Sex in the City again. Talked to the screen. Told the star what to do with her heart. Stood by the water for a long time, thinking about 3 lines I wrote last week that grew wings, flew off the page, and into your mouth. You said you dreamed about them all day. How I pinned my heart to that idea, hoped to taste those words on your tongue. Thank you. Um, this is a little bit of a longer one. This one's late in the book. Uh, the title of this poem is I Want to Be in Rooms Full of People I Love, which is actually a line in an Alex Dimitrov poem called The Why. So I wanted to riff on that. It's really a poem about uh, community and found family, right? And the different kind of relationships that we have that give our life meaning, I think especially as queer people. So this is I Want to Be in Rooms Full of People I Love. The weather changes of its own accord. We worry about the record heat, but go dancing anyway. My friend says, "When did I see you last? Has it really been 2 months?" Yet the love linking us does not care about time. An old poem keeps coming back to me, one I never shared with you, in which I turn on the stairs to see a beau standing in his doorway, and I can feel the heat in his eyes. Friends, lovers, I want to fill these rooms with everyone I hold close, their beautiful voices chatting away. Can I tell you about this really great hug? It was a few months ago. After dinner, my friend and I walked along the park on a muggy April night, and he pulled me in close. It felt like we were suspended in the air, rising up and up, while my head rested on his shoulder. All the trees and apartment buildings just specks beneath our feet. He asked, too tight? And all I could say was, no, no, as our arms made circles around each other, keeping us safe for as long as we stayed there. The hug in that poem is why I chose this work of art for the cover, which is a piece of art called The Hug. And it's from 1930 by an artist called Mikulas Galanda. So that's really the inspiration for this piece of art choice. Um, I'm going to read just two more. This is a poem called Everything. Uh, it's just a love poem, just a classic love poem. So this poem is called Everything. I thought these words would be the work of my life. Instead, it's the electricity between us, how it pulses through our days via message and letter, touch and kiss. It's all this. Our apartment, dinner on Saturday night, when the waiter asks, would you like another round? Groceries, plane flights, beaches, and bills, everything. The years clicking by, one moment at a time. Uh, just a poem about marriage. So I want to end with one last poem. It's the last poem in the book. The recovering Catholic school child in me felt the need to end a book with a blessing. So this is my very gay blessing to end the book and to end my part of the reading tonight. So I hope you'll check out a copy of Thank You More Please. It's been such an honor to read the book for you. So this is my closing blessing. Last week we talked about longing. I'm not getting any younger, I said. I want everything, more and more and more of it. We send messages, we make dinner plans. Hope is coming. Can you smell it on the breeze? Give me the endless blossoming, birthdays and dancing, long walks among gravestones, the perennial reincarnation, love begetting love again and again. Amen. Thank you, everybody. It's been an honor. I really appreciated you listening. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. And I put in the chat Isaiah's website and a link. Words are hard. A link to the book. And as I say, every Wild and Precious Life series, if it is not in your budget to buy a book today, that's completely understandable. Don't stress yourself out, but maybe put everybody on your list for when you are making some book purchases. And also, libraries. You can put in a request with your local library to request the books of people that you hear in the Wild and Precious Life series, and they've got the funds to do that. So you can support authors here that way as well. So our next reader of the evening is Chloe Yelena Miller. And I just got to meet Chloe at AWP, so I love it when I've, have just met someone in real life. It doesn't often happen. Chloe, for your introduction, I'm going to take you back to 2021. You were doing an interview with the Rumpus, and they asked, I think, two or three questions about revision, and I'm picking one in the middle of that discussion. So it does stand alone, but just people, if you're enjoy like I enjoy what Chloe had to say, you might want to go back and read that 2020 interview to see what else Chloe had to say about revision. And that's one of the follow-up questions was you mentioned making the poems more poetic. How did that factor in? And this is what you had to say. My general process is start with that question or grief or emotion. and then write it all out. Then I'll pull out a few words, or I'll even put that completely aside and start over with the main ideas that came through as I wrote some more. And then I'll step back and read through for the word choices or the line breaks. I think the line breaks and the gathering together of different ideas is where I start to look more at the craft and how it's constructed as a poem rather than a raw feeling. I'm really interested in seeing through something. I love taking walks at night and looking into apartments and seeing to the other side, especially new buildings that are being constructed or they're empty and for rent, and you can just see through those next street. I love that double distance. A lot of my poems will begin in a space and seeing through something. I think a lot of us keep writing the same thing over and over, and then finally it appears somewhere else. Thank you for being here tonight. The screen is yours.
Um, Thank you so much, Dustin. That was really a lovely introduction. And Isaiah, those poems were beautiful. I fear we're gonna hone in, as you mentioned, on grief for some of these poems. I look forward to your poems too, Grant. Um, so I was so happy to meet you at AWP, Dustin, and I look forward to your Lily Poetry Review book that's coming out next year. So we will be pressmates. So I love that you were reading that section about seeing through things, which remains my forever obsession. And the title of my book is Perforated, and it's the sense of literally seeing through something. And I've spent a lot of time living and working in Italy, and I love those old buildings, and they're often bell towers where you're in one space, you can see into the bell tower, and then also beyond. So you're existing in all three spaces at the same time. And I think that's how we live most of our lives, that we are a lot of parts simultaneously happening. So I always love looking through things. So my first book I will also share is also a Lily Poetry Review book, and this is Viable, and it's a lyric memoir of a miscarriage followed by a successful pregnancy and postpartum depression. And I kind of work to hold the grief and the joy of the new baby at the same time as well. And so Perforated looks towards public and private griefs from COVID to 9/11 to friends lost to suicide and other losses. So I do hope one day that I will write a funny book. I've been trying really hard to work on a memoir about growing up Italian American, spending some time in Italy, and all the inevitably comical things that happen, but they keep shrinking into poems. So we shall see. But I'm going to start inspired by Isaiah's love poems with a love poem, um, which was first published in Poet Lore. And I love titles that have a duality. This has two titles. It's an Ars Poetica or Pesca Tabacchiera, which is like a donut peach. Ars Poetica or Pesca Tabacchiera. Young, I didn't kiss and tell, but I wanted to, especially after the first time. I wanted to ask friends if they felt the same here and there. I still don't describe those touches, people, the light and shadows. I write around the center. It's that Italian flat peach the merchant offers in a paper bag. He recommends a particular cheese from the next stall, points with a nod while watching your eyes find it. Is the poem the peach you are about to eat while sitting on a curb in the shade, or is it you holding the peach pits wrapped in paper? Um, so a lot of the poems are otherwise, thank you, about grief and loss. And I think we're really bad here in America at talking about loss and accepting that it is a process and that it lasts a lot longer than maybe a funeral. Um, and so I like this idea of perforated, of seeing through. There are a number of poems that also relate to the word palimpsest, which is a word from art history or archaeology, where a number of layers coexist at the same time. And Eileen Cleary, the editor for Lily Poetry Review Books, had suggested that this would make a good title, but I was afraid that I couldn't pronounce it all the time. And so it is not palimpsest, but it has the word palimpsest in a couple of poems. So I will read the poem with that title. And this was first published in Via, Voices in Italian Americana. Palimpsest. And this is a poem to our child while we were living in Florence, in Italy. If I were commissioned to design a church, I would design it for you, child. I'd set the dome on high ground, nearby, impossibly tall marble door, disguised by filigree carving, ever rotating exhibit of light and dark, surface all texture and shadows. Stories wouldn't matter, just the shapes. Or are shapes only disguised stories? Windows would offer the sky, inside and out. There's no exact word to describe seeing through architecture to the other side. Perforated isn't quite right. You and I watch the day's light shapeshift, what is revealed and when. There, a bird's underbelly, here, a corner, before it becomes something smoother. Silence and all the sounds of laughter and wails. This is, after all, a monument to humans crafted by artists and mathematicians. Inside, all the books and grain, water and creatures. We walk the Florentine streets holding hands. Mine, you ask? Do you have pencil and paper? So there's a little poem joke in this poem as well. I think it's really hard to title a book, and so maybe perforated's not the right title, and I had the line in there. Perforated isn't quite right. Our jokes in our poems. Then I cheated a little in this collection that I had a lyric essay that was published in Grace and Gravity, which is a publication that comes out annually for women identifying writers, put out by oh no, I just forgot her name. Melissa Scholes Young. And I had the essay published in there, and then I was thinking it's close to a poem, and so it's been broken up and put throughout the book as prose poems. And I grew up outside of New York City, and this poem reflects on my visit back years after 9/11 and thinking about the anniversary. And this poem is New York City 6. You are each layer, by which I mean age, at once, a palimpsest of sorts. You reach for my hand no matter what year it is or where we are, even if we prefer this street where we always walked. We see each other while looking towards the trees reaching up in the woods. We have this made, saved, and remembered. So there are a number of poems here that kind of collect together friends that I've lost and continue to think about. When I was 12, which is the same age as my child now, I lost my best friend, and she passed, and I've been kind of waiting for my son to move past that age to make sure that he doesn't experience the same loss. But something kind of remarkable about publishing a book is that I have an epigraph to her in the very beginning, to Elizabeth Colton Bonner. And it's about this sense when we were in elementary school that we would identify this one tree and we called it our automatic, and we would meet there during recess and sit and talk. And I posted that on the Facebook group for the school, which is since closed. And I reconnected with my elementary and middle school art teacher and another friend. And it's this nice kind of coming together through the poems. So I'd like to read a poem to her, which is titled News Since Your Passing. Your father remarried after the divorce, your mother writes to me, and I miscarried. Tried not to believe the baby was you. I knew you wanted to come back. Have you? Um, and there are also a series of poems from my great aunt Dora. I see Iris is here. I think that she knew her. She was born in 1908. She lived until she was almost 103, and everyone would always ask her how did you live so long? And so this poem addresses that length of time and a little bit of her stories. And it's from a series that I title either English vocabulary or Italian vocabulary poems, which are definition poems that seek to define a word through a scene or an emotion of some sort. I learned Italian as kind of a third generation Italian American, but I learned the language in college. The family had stopped speaking it and teaching it to the next generations. And I really I suffered through learning the language, which I think gave me a lot of attention to the grammar and the vocabulary, and then made me have a certain distance from English, which is helpful, I think, as a poet. And so this poem takes place during COVID, and it's for my great aunt Dora, and it's titled English Vocabulary Grudge. My aunt credited her long life to codfish oil, dispensed by her mother. She said, we were lined up against the wall, mouths open, like for communion. She said they each received one shot glass full. She showed me how they held their noses to gulp. She was the only sibling who lived more than a century. But no matter, codfish oil it was. Codfish oil and the fact that she never married. No man pissed me off every day, she said. But I credit her grudges. She packed them into each new house with the fabric swatches from dresses, olive oil stained recipes, black and white photos. She never forgot the niece who barely greeted her, or the friend with the rough words in the bathroom, or the relative's kiss with the tongue she witnessed while his wife was in the other room. She'd point to the neighbor's outdoor light to remind us how it was shining right at her living room chair. And there were more. I'm not yet half a century old, but there's a global, deadly pandemic. I credit my grudges. I announced to my friend, I won't forget who put us in danger with their maskless parties and lack of distancing. Her nearly teenage daughter shakes her head. You'll need to get over that. And the kind child is right. Maybe I will live through this. Please let us all live through this. Um, so another friend who is highlighted in this collection is my friend Edward Wyckoff Williams, who passed from COVID kind of toward the end of the worst of the pandemic. Yesterday would have been his 50th birthday, and I wanted to read these poems for him and think of him. I read one of the two that I'm going to read, which has been translated into Italian and will be in an upcoming bilingual edition with both English and Italian poems by Italian American poets. And I read this poem in an art gallery outside of Washington, D.C. And Edward used to work for Al Gore's media company, and it was kind of a talking head political person. And someone there knew him, which was really like the most DC moment to talk about Al Gore and my friend in the same breath. This is not my circle. So this poem is Italian vocabulary intimissimi, which you might know is the name of an Italian lingerie store. And he was living in England. He came to visit me in Italy, and he was very taken by this store. Italian vocabulary intimissimi. And it starts in Rome. In a Trastevere church, I balance a thin candle above another's flame, lower the bottom between the metal netting until it's trapped into balance below the stone Mary. What will they do with the candle stubs tonight, these handwritten wishes? 20 years ago in Italy, you sounded out the store name, Intimissimi. Intimissimi, 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 intimissimi. Laughter as repetition drowned meaning. So intimate. I took a selfie with a celebrity today, thought of you and your desire to be seen, known, and how we stopped talking over what, really? I light candles, repeat intimissimi until we are again together in our platonic love. Impossible. My wish, this clatter of coins in the collection box. So this is the other poem for Edward Wyckoff Williams, and it's titled Etruscan Bronzes. Facebook memory. I love you. I miss you. XXXX. With your name typed, of course, no pen preserving your smallest movements, but still you calling from the archives. It had been too long then, but now you loved a surprise entrance like those Etruscan bronzes, noses, then cheeks emerging from thermal baths unearthed while visitors soaked. You'd approve of such luxury amidst work, would have posed clean, a close-up in portrait mode, Tuscan background, only a brown and green blur. Those bronze figures from their height of youth, artist's hand concealed by the smoothing of time, gaze upon a far-off horizon, long buried. So I've thought a lot about what a poem can do, if there's any hope that a poem and our skills are able to reach someone. And Dustin was talking about AWP. I organized a panel that was called Beyond the Picket Sign, in which three poets and I talked about ways that our poems have been used for good and things that we've done. And I hope that we're able to motivate, offer community, and encourage folks to do things. So I will end with one poem with a fear of school shootings that I hope none of us have been in this situation. And I hope that we are able to work towards stopping them. This poem was published in Mom Ag Review. This is my last poem. Disarm. I was your home. Your limbs nudged my bones to make room for yours. Now in the dry world, you walk, even dance. I'm no longer your walls, roof, and floor, protecting your growth. This is how it should be. I cannot save your body with mine if, when the shooter arrives. I cannot return to being your home if, when danger rushes in, knocks everything over. You go to school to learn everything, like how parts make a whole and how your song and screams begin in your lungs with breath. No one can learn to be bulletproof, so you shouldn't have to try in the closet. You deserve challenges you can fail at before trying again, like building a bowl out of clay with two hands. If the walls collapse, you roll the clay into a ball between your palms, use your thumbs to build them up again. The clay may or may not become a bowl, but you can keep trying. I cannot save you if, when the active shooter finds your classroom door, your desk covered in pencils and tiny erasers. I must release you into the world so you can grow. This is how it should be, and how it shouldn't be when. Thank you. Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you so much. Before we move on to our final reader of the evening, this is one of those months where we actually have two Wild and Precious Life series events, which feels weird, but I mean, during the pandemic, we were doing them weekly for over a year and a half, but now it feels wild. So I just want to hope that maybe you'll come back, tell your friends to visit next week. We have a theme next week, which is it's the imprint of Small Harbor Publishing, Harbor Editions. We'll be featuring Evelyn Berry, Travis Chewing Lau, and Jessica Walsh, who I see in the audience tonight. They are all reading from new books. So I hope that you will come next week. So, our final reader of the evening is Grant Chemidlin. And Grant, I'm not taking you back too far. And ever so often this happens where I get to read from an essay that one of the readers wrote, and something jumped out at me in this essay that I want to share as your introduction. So Grant wrote an essay in LitHub, and this is from October 2025, and it's titled How Being a Writer Broke, Then Healed My Queer Little Heart. And I'm going to read a little snippet. I enjoyed the whole thing, but something called to me to read this as your introduction tonight. Poetry gives me this specific feeling. Like every time I read a new poem or write a new poem of my own, I'm removing a thick, crumbly brick from the sky-high wall I built as a kid. With each poem, the world, my world, becomes a little clearer to me, a little more colorful. I feel inspired and hopeful, more curious, more limber in my own body, more willing to write about anxiety, my first date with a man, coming out to my family. I can spill all my thoughts and memories onto the page, be as brave and brash and sexy as I want. I can break a line and leave a reader in suspense, wanting more. I have power and agency and space to sprawl, even if it's only me who ever reads it. Each word allowed out, instead of kept inside, makes me lighter, able to float. Thank you for being here tonight. The screen is yours.
Goodness. Thank you so much, Dustin, for that lovely introduction and that reading of the essay. Amazing. Thank you so much for having me here back, I should say. This is my second time doing the reading. I feel lucky and honored to be doing it again, especially with these incredible poets. Thank you, Isaiah and Chloe, for your wonderful readings, your beautiful, moving poems. I just appreciate being here tonight. So thank you. I am going to read from my new collection, In the Middle of a Better World, which, like Isaiah's book, came out last month. I'm going to read 5 poems. Maybe I said that already. Yeah, and this book, it's a very queer collection. I think Dustin summed it up perfectly. What kind of the feeling of the book is I sort of realized there was a lot that I still needed to say about queerness, about my identity, a lot that I wanted to unpack about my youth, and really just, especially post coming out, understanding like how I define queerness, what it means to me, what it feels like to be a queer body moving through the world, reaching for joy and love and happiness while still dealing with the internalized shame and homophobia, that residual fear and anxiety that I still have, and that a lot of us queer people still carry, long after coming out of the closet and even after getting married. So I'm going to jump into the first poem. It's called Little Quaint House, and it runs into the poem, so I'll repeat it. Little quaint house, outside, but stepping in, the walls were adorned with naked men, stretched, voluptuous, leather-bound and gagged, tasteful, but for my still closeted eyes, the silver glint of the sharpest needle. I looked both ways before crossing the hall, past the marble ass, Tom of Finland quiet on the table. It was like finding a library buried in sand, contraband of a bunker, the kind of bachelor's pad I'd never even thought to dream of. He was the only out man I knew, so I invited myself over. We drank gin, kissed on the couch, my first time feeling the coarse ground of a man's face against my own. The friction, the heat of his unbuttoning, of him leading me up the spiral stairs to the bedroom. Both there, I saw our cocks were nearly identical in size, in straightness, only his had aged 20 years. The image scared me. I became suddenly aware of something cavernous, a sadness that tinged the room, pooled among shadows, the faces of the men trapped in black frames. I was young, so did that awful thing. We came at the same time, then I left him, drove home, back to what for me was just beginning. So this next poem I'm going to read is a sequence poem. And for those of you that aren't aware of what a sequence poem is, it's a one poem that is told in tiny sections and tiny parts. So this one is 10 sections. And it wasn't until writing or putting this book together that I realized that almost each of the sections has one long sequence poem in it. So when I was thinking about that, why I sort of gravitate towards this form, I think I realized the form itself feels very queer to me. Kind of telling a story in tiny pieces. There's this withholding element. There's a restraint. This narrative that feels fractured and has all these gaps in it, but that leaves all this space for imagination. So yeah, it felt like it was very symbolic, or is very symbolic, of queerness and the queer experience and how we express ourselves in our own stories. This is called Celebrity. 1. My aunt gifts me a book, a memoir about a gay man's funny life being single. I came out 3 years ago. My aunt is harmless. I add it to the pile with the others. 2. Black sheep, pink sheep, green, blue, yellow, rainbow sheep. I heard them beneath the great blanket of night. I heard them. 3. At a wedding in North Dakota, we are the only gays. We are celebrities. People shake our hands and say how brave we are. On the dance floor, we feel their gaze as they hang on the edges of their seats. Will we touch hands or perhaps lock lips? 4. In 6th grade, I used to say, "That's gay," over and over, held up those words like a silver mirror behind which I'd cower. 5. I wrote a poem about 2 ducks I saw walking off into the sunset. So close, I imagined little hands being held beneath their feathers. The first draft, I wrote 1 male, 1 female. 6. So who's the bride and who's the groom? Who's fucking whom? Ask the willow tree outside our window, though I know it'll never tell. 7. There I go again, self-censorship, this black bar I hide my eyes behind, sometimes my mouth, sometimes, yes, I slip it inside myself. 8. Did you always know? How many times have you lied to me? Here's a metaphor. Someone skips a stone across a lake. The stone skips on and on. The stone is gay. The water of the lake is truth. 9. You don't know me. I don't know me, but I'm starting to. 10. The book my aunt gave me, I liked it. I read it twice. I bought a copy for my boyfriend. So the next poem I'm going to read, a little context. I used to volunteer for this program that sadly no longer exists, but it was called Social Call, and it paired isolated older adults who were sort of seeking connection. They were paired with volunteers for weekly phone calls. And so the woman I was paired with was named Natalie, and she sadly passed away. So I wanted to share this poem. She passed away a few years ago, but when I do read this poem, I think of her and I feel like I conjure her up. So I wanted to read it tonight. So this is for you, Natalie. It's called The News That Fell Like Heavy Rain. B walks into the living room this next morning, and the first thing he says to me is, "How's your heart?" I always struggle to know what I can't see. You and I never actually met, though we talked on the phone once a week, 3 years strong, watched volunteer work blossom into bond. I listened to you cry. We talked about your granddaughter and God. So nervous before our first call. Gay boy from LA, you a pastor's wife, turned widow, turned pastor, all yourself. Survivor of hurricanes and southern heat. The way 1 year in, you told me all about your own secret queer relationships. People are impossible to fully know. Starry sky, we try to trap in a thimble. Your huge celestial laughter, how clovers grew in the cracks of your voice. A tunnel of flowers. All I could see in my dream was a tunnel of flowers. The paper cup phone, the long taut string cut. Okay, so 2 more poems. This next one is set in Brainerd, Minnesota, where my husband is from. And I am from New Jersey, but we live in Los Angeles, and we've lived here for about the last 10, 11 years, which is crazy already. So because of that, we don't visit our families often. And I think one of the themes of this book, outside of queerness and identity and sexuality, is a speaker searching for a sense of place and home and understanding family and what that means and what that looks like. And I think for me personally, I use a lot of my poems as little time capsules, as many of us do. But when I visit my family in New Jersey or my husband's family, which is now my family in Minnesota, I sort of end up writing about it afterwards as a way to just try to hold on to the small moments that we had and the fleeting moments because we do, living so far away, miss a lot. So this is called Rain on the 4th, Brainerd, Minnesota. I stood beneath the sliver of roof at the front door. You and your mother sat side by side on the stoop. You closed your eyes. The invisible left its mark all over your shirts. Unmistakable smell of summer road, childhood home. I walked my bare feet on the lawn, and hundreds of baby toads leaped. A good plague, a tiny firework. Your dad asleep inside post chemo, his first week. Thunder, then harder rain. Eventually, we went inside to play games, eat the ice cream your sister made. On the long flight home, you and I saw below a cloud beating with light, someone else's storm. How easily we passed above it, how strange it felt. Okay, so this last poem is a love poem, which feels very fitting since there's been a lot of love poems tonight. It's the second to last poem in the book, and it's one of my favorite poems. And I've read it every reading I've done so far because it's very special to me. I basically decided I wasn't satisfied just writing a traditional love poem. Like I needed to write a love poem for my husband in case I die before him, which is very morbid. Um, but I think when I read it or when I read it out loud to others, even though it's a morbid thought, I find it very comforting and very peaceful and cathartic. So it's called For If I Go First. My sweet man, tall man, bub, love of my life, I am here. Whether or not heaven exists, these lines are real. I am here in these lines speaking to you. Outside time, space, this page where I wait for your visits, when you need a break from your life that's kept on moving, the jobs, more love, more loss. I am here. Tell me about them. Come pitch a tent. We can make stars as many as we want. We can travel back to that first and only camping trip. We can make nothing. We can leave this page but a satin sheet to lie on. The thin veil is nothing more than your mother's quilt, the one she made me, blue-green like a shallow sea. My husband, my one and only, weren't we so lucky to have found each other, that everything between us came clear? Utopia, here, here. What we have will never end. I've penned it that way, carved out this space for us. I am here. I am here. I love you. Oh God, how I love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Again, give a round of applause. Those reactions for all of our readers. Want to give two quick reminders for you go about your evening. When it comes to the Wild and Precious Life series, I don't want your money, but I do want something from you. I saw all the reactions, I see the comments. You had a great time tonight. So if you could just share that on social media, recommendations, that word of mouth is the best way to get new people tuning into this series. So tag us on Facebook, tag us on Instagram and Blue Sky. And we're still on Twitter, just trying to promote the writers. So that helps get people in and hopefully increases book sales for the writers. So our next two readings next week, like I said, this is a double Wild and Precious Life series this month. We have authors from the Harbor Editions, which is the imprint from Small Harbor Publishing. And then I'm excited to say April 1st is our sixth-year anniversary reading. We have been doing this for 6 years. It only works because people say yes when I invite them, and then we have people show up to hear the poets. So it's because of you that we have made it last this long. It will be a round robin style reading because the whole point is just to have a lot of voices from the 6 years read. You're going to hear from people like Kim Adnizio, Diane Seuss, and a lot of other great poets. I just, you know how it is, you got to throw out some of those big names when you're promoting, trying to pull you in. Do you feel me pulling you in for April 1st? So please put it on your calendar. It's a great night to celebrate. So I'd love to have us to have a record-breaking audience. And just follow us on social media and you'll find out about all the readings. And just remember, the world is chaotic and scary right now. So be kind, but that also includes being kind to yourself and being patient with yourself right now. It can't be underestimated the gentleness that we need to treat ourselves. So I hope to see you at the next reading or sometime in the future. Have a great night, everybody.